It's about the 21st of January as I record this, and we're just 2 days past quitting day. That's the day that a survey of 800,000 people pointed out as the most popular day for quitting your New Year's resolutions. So how are your New Year's resolutions doing? Hi, this is Gary. This podcast is Gary on Manufacturing, although sometimes I broach into other things. And as usual, for quite some time now, and I appreciate the sponsorship of Inductive Automation. And this podcast is brought to you with support from Inductive Automation. Discover a whole new view with Ignition 8 by Inductive Automation, packed with features for the modern control system like unlimited licensing, high-powered tags, and a mobile-first flexible design environment for all devices. Ignition 8 supports enterprises of any size. See all Ignition has to offer at inductiveautomation.com. So, New Year's resolutions, do you make them? I read a little bit about them now and then, and not a tremendous amount, but a lot of advice. And I think people are starting to follow some of the, maybe not my lead, but some ideas I picked up about maybe New Year's resolutions and specific goals like, I will be 180 pounds, or I will lose 25 pounds, or I'll grow 5 inches, or, whatever the heck it might be. Those kind of, make $1 million this year. They don't work pretty much. And like I said, January 19th, so 19 days into the year, most people have already forgotten about them. So I was thinking the other day, during the winter, especially around Christmas time and that kind of break, my wife likes to get out jigsaw puzzles. And we just finished a jigsaw puzzle. And don't know if you've ever worked those things, but when I sit there and I stare at them and I kind of defocus my eyes, I begin to see just the jigsaw pattern. And that gets to be interesting up to annoying. I go to bed, I lay down, I close my eyes, and behind my eyelids, I see the jigsaw pattern. I look at my computer screen, and what do I see? Kind of overlaid over the screen is the jigsaw pattern. So I was thinking about patterns the other day, and sometimes, patterns kind of rule our lives. And some people put that into habits, and they'll say things like, our habits rule our lives. And if we haven't figured out intentionally what our habits are, then things that we just kind of habitually do rule us. So what's the pattern in your life? What is there something perhaps that you do habitually, that you get up and you do, or you go out and you do? I always go to the same coffee shop, or I have to eat a certain thing, or I know I shouldn't have a donut, but I always stop at the donut shop on the way to work, whatever it might be. It's a good time to just kind of sit back, look at our patterns and our habits and say, maybe there's one little thing we could do to change and make things a little bit better. Maybe it improves a relationship just a little bit. Maybe it improves our work life just a little bit. Maybe it saves us a little bit of time. Maybe we can enjoy something a little bit more if we just change one little habit at a time. Another technique that I use is like to, rather than say, I want to lose so much weight, or I want to do this, or I want to be in shape. Back when I was doing a lot of soccer refereeing, it'd be, running like this, or making better decisions, or whatever that might be, passing the test, but whatever. But take a look and say, what kind of person would I like to be? Am I the kind of person who eats nutritious meals? I'm the kind of person that exercises regularly. I'm the kind of person that reads broadly, or maybe I'm the kind of person that reads 1 or 2 really good, deep books, and I read them deeply, and I read them over and over until I can suck out the wisdom from that writer. Am I the kind of person that's curious? I've been told that that's one of the things Google looks at when they hire people. Are you curious? Are you interested in this and this and this? And go explore that. A survey of scientists, a longitudinal survey over a long time, many years, discovered that a lot of leading scientists over that time actually did papers in a number of different areas. I mean, not outside their specialty necessarily, but they would explore something and they'd write a paper, and then they'd get curious about something else and they would explore that and write it. It is said about Peter Drucker, the famous management consultant, if you will, executive writer guru, who he would explore something and write about it and consult on it. And then he'd get curious about something else and he would explore that and write that. A little tip for you, maybe you could say, I'm the kind of person who performs random acts of kindness. When I go to the coffee shop, I pay for the next person in line. I hold the door open. I help somebody with their bags of groceries out of the grocery store. Shovel the walk of snow of the person next door. Plus, you live in Florida, and that becomes a ridiculous goal to aspire to. But regardless of all that, it's another way to kind of look at these kind of things. I also picked up some ideas from a CEO consultant by the name of Kevin Roberts from his blog. And he talked about, instead of a New Year's resolution, try adding a skill this year. And he suggests some skills that might be worthwhile to add. Add the gift of storytelling. Telling stories is much more powerful than citing a bunch of facts. Rather than going into your engineering meeting with bullet points, tell a story about how this particular thing saved some downtime of a pump, or it kept the process going, or I got the maintenance and the operations people together and we solved this problem, and so on. Storytelling is powerful. Mindfulness, stopping, pausing, breathing. That's clearing your head. It helps recharge focus. Excellent thing to do. There are apps. I don't necessarily recommend apps. You can use them, or you can just stop, pause, breathe. Just focus on your breathing. And when your mind takes off, like it will, that's okay. Just kind of let it gently come back to the breath. That's all you have to do. He mentions emotional thinking. Make big decisions with your heart, small ones with your head. We should know, those of you that are listening to this who are in sales know that people make decisions emotionally and not logically. So if you're a salesperson, you don't try to sell logically, but you try to tell a story that connects emotionally with someone. Negotiating could be a skill that you need this year. Kevin Roberts says, I learned this from my children. Talk about master negotiators, that would be your kids. Delegating can be, for me, well, I work alone, so delegating is a bit of a problem. I look in the mirror and delegate to myself. But anyway, delegating could be a very useful skill. Showing appreciation is an excellent skill to develop. You can do that now just by saying thank you to someone. Active listening. It has been said that, in fact, I've got quotes from Mark Twain to William James to a number of other people about how people don't listen. Active listening. Watch someone, look at them when they're talking so that you can be totally involved. I tend to give a little feedback, and on Zoom meetings or some conference calls where people are on a speakerphone and you get that lag, I like to give a little feedback that I'm still there, like, sure, yeah. And sometimes that gets distracting because of the speakerphone thing. But if I just sit there mute and don't ever say anything, they don't know if I'm still there. Then they'll say, are you there? Yeah, well, yeah, I am. Learning from your failures. Interesting concept. I could do a whole podcast on my failures and what I've learned from them. And that's kept me going to this ripe old age. Making lists is another thing. Do you do lists? I use an outliner, but I also use note cards and other things to have a list. cross off when it's done, reminds me to get something done, and it helps me focus on the next task at hand. And his last skill to practice is having fun. Sometimes we forget to do that. I get serious and like to just keep on going and so on. And you forget to stop and do something to have fun. In this pandemic, that hasn't been easy, but still in all, there are places where I get to go watch the grandkids, swim or play baseball, whichever grandkid, or they're both into music now, and that gets to be interesting, and you can have a little fun there. And we got out a couple of times here lately, and maybe as the pandemic winds down, we'll get out a little bit more. Anyway, that's a few tips, things to think about for the new year, and actually at any time. And I just recommend maybe every month, kind of sitting back and reflecting, and where am I and what am I doing? And am I the kind of person I thought I was going to be? Am I still eating nutritiously? Am I exercising? Do I get out and doing something, whatever it is, whether it's lifting weights or walking in nature? They're all good. Or running a couple of miles a day, whatever it is. Take off and do it. And how does this relate to manufacturing? Hey, if it makes you a more enthusiastic, more well-rounded, better, more curious person, it's going to help you professionally, and it's going to help your team, your company, and maybe you'll solve a big problem and help society. Another worthy goal. Anyway, this is Gary on Manufacturing. This podcast is brought to you with the support of Inductive Automation. Discover a whole new view with Ignition 8 by Inductive Automation, backed with features for the modern control system like unlimited licensing, high-powered tags, and a mobile-first flexible design environment for all devices. Ignition 8 supports enterprises of any size. See all Ignition has to offer at inductiveautomation.com. Thanks for listening. Have a good week.